Hey guys, this is acservicetech, and today what we're going over is the most commonly used HVAC ductwork tools. So these right here are some of the tools that I use for doing ductwork, and I'm going to be going over the frequency in which I use each of these tools here, and I'm going to be going over their use individually, so what each of these tools are used for. Now there are other HVAC tools out there as well, and you know there's a lot of them, and everybody has their own style that they'd like to work with, and but these are just the ones that I use. We're going to go ahead and get started. If we wanted to lock that tape measure down and then mark 8 inches, we could use a black Sharpie, just like this, right by the edge. Now, if we wanted to make a less intrusive line, we can use a scratch-awl. So we need to make 2 marks to make a line right across. So now we're going to use our scratch-awl to mark at 8 inches. So we have our mark right here. It's a little harder to see. What I typically do when I do scratches like that is I might make a little tail in order to find it. But just so you can see it maybe a little bit more, make sure that you're not using a scratch-awl to mark your ductwork if you are making a condensate pan, because you're scratching through the galvanic coating on the ductwork. You can use a scribe. So say I wanted to mark 1 inch here on the corner. All I have to do is just come like this, and just like that. So I know my exact spot where that corner needs to be cut at. Just so you can see it, it's right there. Now I can cut with my 3-inch combination snips over right to that mark right there. And then what you're going to do is you wiggle this off just like that. With ductwork, you make sure that you never are twisting like this, because you're going to make like a curlicue that you're going to get stuck with. You don't want to end up getting caught with a little sliver off the sheet metal and have it go into your skin. Anytime we're cutting out corners to maybe fold something like this part right here, if we were trying to fold it over, we cut larger than a 90 degree. So we use Sharpies to mark the ductwork. This is very visible to see, as you can tell. Scratch-awls will be used more so by professionals, maybe in a sheet metal shop, but Sharpies are typically used out in the field, but either one can be used. Scribes are nice because they have 1 inch, 7/8, 3/4, ½ inch marks. They go 3/8 as well right here. They're just really handy so that you don't have to take measurements of small amounts. So you can just scratch it and then you're good to go. Here we have a 12-inch folding tool, and you have 1 inch on this side and 3/8 on that side. So these are typically used for things like making end caps, any type of folding that needs either one of these. The 1 inch is used probably more than the 3/8 side, but the 3/8 side is always used for a drive ear, which is a way to connect 2 pieces of rectangular ductwork. In this case, we're just going to go ahead and put our folding tool into the ductwork, and you see that we're entering in on the corner, and then we come over like this. So you always do it that way. You never work with ductwork in a way where you're coming in at it like this. You always get one part in, and then you come to the other side. Make sure that you see the ductwork right in the middle here and here. You're going to press this down with your fingers, and you're going to fold upwards. And then you can basically figure where a 90 degree is. So that's where that 90 degree is. This comes in 12-inch, 18-inch, 2 foot. Sometimes you're making a cut in the middle of a section of ductwork, like a straight cut, and you need to use a smaller folding tool like this 12-inch to fold it up. Otherwise, you could use larger folding tools in order to fold whatever piece of metal you're trying to. Next we have our handbrakes, and this right here is spring-loaded, and you have 1/4 inch, ½ inch, 3/4, 1 inch, and 1¼ inch notches on the side here, so you know your depth of how far you're going into the metal. So this would be used for folding over sections of metal that will be shorter than your folding bar. All right, these are very commonly used to bend flanges, whether it's part of the furnace or air handler or the sheet metal or whatever you're working on. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and bend this wide sheet right here. This is about 10 inches. We're going to fold it at 1 inch. So we're going to line this side up and this side up, and then you basically hold that down as you bend up. Now if I wanted to bend this into a 90, I'm going to work it a little at a time. Just like this. Looks a little awkward because we're with the camera right here. But I typically have 2 hands on the handbrakes. So there you go. You could bend even just a small 1/4 inch section with these handbrakes. A lot of times I'm handling them like this, okay, and folding with both hands. Now we're going to look at our combination snips. These are 3-inch combination snips and used for long cuts on sheet metal. So let's take a measurement of, let's say, 5 inches. These folding tools also work well just to draw a straight line with. You could also use a square, which will also just make sure that whatever metal you're working with stays very straight and accurate and square. So what you do with these, any type of snips you're working with, you never close down all the way unless you are trying to end there. Like you're cutting out a triangle, you can end right here and end right here. But if you're cutting a straight line and you're continuing, you never end up closing down completely, because that's how barbs are made, and the barbs are what's going to end up sticking you in the finger. So you see that this hand right here, I'm actually lifting up on this as I cut, and it makes it easier to cut that out. So these are used to cut long straight pieces of sheet metal. Next you have left-handed tin snips. So I'm right-handed. These are left-handed tin snips. That does not indicate the hand in which you cut with. Alright, so I'm right-handed. These are left-handed tin snips, and these are right-handed tin snips. The reason that we call them that is, see that the tongues here are on different sides. Okay, so this bottom tongue right here is on the left-hand side, or mouth. This right here is on the left-hand side, and this one is on the right-hand side. So with this, we'll be able to cut in a right direction, and with this one, we'll be able to cut in a left direction. Now, to show how these work, we're going to use the dividers in order to make a partial circle right here. Okay, so these are dividers. You can do the same as these with just a piece of cardboard and 2 nails. So whatever you want to do, you can use these, or if you're in a pinch, you just rip off a section of cardboard and you mark it out whatever the radius of the circle that you want it to be. So say we wanted to make a 6-inch circle, we're going to lock these dividers at 3 inch right here in order to make our marks. So let's just start right here. Alright, so just to give us a scratch of a circle right there. I don't know if you can see it. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to make it darker. So, right-handed snips, green. I'm going to go in this direction right here. If you hit an obstacle where the handles are hitting part of the object, then what you can do is you can stop there and you can use the red tin snips, which are the left-hand tin snips. So you can come and finish up your circle with your left-hand tin snips. If this ductwork right here is a large object, it's going to be held still. So what I typically do with my left hand is I will go ahead and lift that up just like this. Alright, so there we are. If I'm doing a lot of ductwork, I like to use my leather gloves just to make sure that I don't get any barbs into my skin. You see this right here, very sharp. You don't want that to go into your skin, so their gloves are there to protect you. These tin snips are the left-handed 90-degree tin snips, and here you have the right-handed 90-degree tin snips. You don't have to have both of these. All right, so if you have one, you should be able to cut a circle for the most part with just the one. Okay, so you can cut in a direction like this. I typically handle them just like this. Typically, you can get around the obstacles with just one instead of buying both of them. All right. So either one that you would want to get would be fine. If you wanted to get both of them, just to have, to get out of binds from having, the handle sticking way out this way, then go ahead and do that. But so these are not for speed. These are for tight spots where you can't cut it out with any other type of tin snip. Let me just explain these dividers a little bit more. So if you have a radius of 3-inch, that should give you a 6-inch circle if one of these is in the middle. A way to get by without these, it would be to take maybe some screws or roofing nails or whatever, mark 2 holes, and then you can have those at 3 inches, and that'll make a 6-inch circle. You got to make sure though that middle nail does not move. So press it down real hard. The sharper the nail, the better, because it'll just hold itself right into the metal. Right, and you're just scratching it just like a scratch awl. So there is our circle. I don't know if you can see that or not. If we wanted to start to cut that, we could then put a piece of wood underneath of it. Then we could take our sheet metal hammer and our flathead screwdriver, and then we can drive a hole right into the metal. I'm not going to continue, but basically you're going to go from, say, point A to point B. You're going to make it probably about 1.5 inches long, and after you do that, you're going to open it up with the flathead just like that in order to get your tin snips into the hole. Then what you can do is you just start making a circle just like this, and then you're going to come over to the line. And in this case, I'll go ahead and Sharpie it so you can see it, but that's how I always end up starting the collars unless I'm using a collar cutter like this. So there we have our circle marked out, and then you can just continue with these left-handed tin snips. Anytime you want to turn, you're going to grab with the tin snips and then go. Just for instance, say you wanted to come in and you wanted to turn here, you're just going to hold it while turning, and then you can go ahead and cut in that direction. Okay, and then you're going to continue that and so on. So I typically end up buying a 3-pack just because it ends up being cheaper than buying the right-handed tin snips and the left-handed tin snips individually. So I typically end up getting the yellow pair. So as you see, the red pair is offset upwards. So that helps getting your handles up a little higher. So you're out of the way of the metal. These yellow ones are just exactly straight. So your hands are really, kind of in the way of the metal as you're cutting. So I typically don't use these for much. I might use these to cut S-lock and drive, and that's about it. So this right here is slip, slide, or S-lock, whatever you would like to call it. When it comes in a 10-foot length, that's called a cleat. So right here, that's slip, slide, or S-lock, and I opened it up a little bit so you could see it, and this is drive. So I'll typically use these yellow ones to cut a section of S-lock because it's literally 3 sections of metal with 2 sections that have it little folded over. So it takes a little bit to cut it. Now I want to tell you that you never cut S-lock like this. Don't ever do that because that will end up breaking the tin snips, and all that force is going to end up launching the part of the tip, and you don't want to end up doing that. So you want to get it towards the back, and you're going to cut into it a little bit, and that's how you're going to do it, just like that. Now, if you have the opportunity to, if you ever have a table to work on, you can actually let the table do the work for you. Half the work for you at least. You're still going to have to press down, but that's going to hold that part of the handle for you. It's going to be a lot easier for you. Also, these are called bulldog snips. So these are primarily used for cutting S-lock with. All right, so you just slip that in right there, and it just makes it easy for you to cut through. It's a lot easier with these than it is with the yellow tin snips. Okay, so these are called bulldog snips. I do use these sometimes. I don't use them a whole lot, but that's basically their use, is to cut multiple pieces of sheet metal all at one time. Here we have an adjustable collar cutter or hole cutter that we use in conjunction with the drill, and this right here can slide. So if we want to cut a 6-inch circle, it's not going to say 3 inches, but that's actually what this is right here. You're going to lock it at the 6-inch right there, just like that, and you tighten it with either an adjustable wrench or a screwdriver or something. So right there's at 6 inches, just like that. Say this is the center of where you want to cut this circle at. What we'll first do is we'll make a hole. Just like that. Then you set this in. Now we're set in, and we're going to use this. Now you see the direction right here? It's telling us that it wants to go clockwise. So we're going to spin the drill bit clockwise, and then we're going to rotate this clockwise. Just like that. So that's how you use that tool. The only issue with this is that you want to end up using this maybe more so for new construction before you end up hanging the duct or having all the duct connected together, because you have all of this metal dust and debris basically floating around in the air in the ductwork. All right, so you want to try to get that out. If you are going to use this tool, it's recommended that you have multiple ones so that you already have them locked into the radius of the collars you're using and the manufacturer's collars that you're using too, because they might vary in different diameters depending on which manufacturer you go with. So you already have these figured out and locked in at 5, 6, 7, and 8. So you have 4 of these ready to go, and it's just a time saver, so you don't have to adjust them as well, and there's no guessing game, and all your collars end up fitting tight. So you see this metal debris right here. You don't want to leave that in the ductwork, so you want to be able to, if you use this tool, to be able to dump that stuff out of there prior to assembling the ductwork. So right here we already have the cut started, but I just want to show you another way to start the cut. Instead of using a flathead screwdriver, you can use a unibit and a drill. Just make sure that if you do use this, that you have a long enough piece of metal that you can definitely hold on to. And you want to make sure to avoid the sheet metal spinning with this, basically, because it'll come right around and end up cutting you. So you want to make sure that you have your hands away and that this metal is big enough, you're standing on it, or whatever it might be. Just so you know, I have a piece of wood right underneath it here, and we're just going to go ahead and drill right down into it. I don't have to continue making that hole, but this is a step bit, so it'll step up into each of these different sizes. It's best if maybe you have this a little in front of the wood so it doesn't have to go into the wood, because that will end up burning this up. So maybe we'll have it over here to the side a little bit. So there you go. That hole is definitely big enough for you to go ahead and start making another hole. And then you just come right around and you can start your circle just like that. Say I'm making a section of ductwork, and this is right here is at 6 inches, and we'll measure at 1 inch right here. We could also use our scribe. And from that point here, we're going to make a small triangle. Instead of doing that, you could have one of these. it actually will cut that section out for you, just like that. I'm going to be honest with this tool. You know, I thought it was really cool when it came out. I bought this a long time ago. I don't use it that often in the field. All right, it's helpful in the sheet metal shop, and you might have other automatic tools for cutting, but I don't use it that often. But it is nice in order to cut those triangles out. This will replicate an end of a duct where you're going to end up folding this over for where you're going to put a section of drive in. We could just flip this over. We would attach that in just like that. Fold this over. It would have been nice to have this flat on the table, but you see we have this bent in this direction right here. Now before I take this folding tool off, I'm going to use my handbrakes on this, and I'm going to give it an extra crimp downwards, and it's going to make it into a perfect U channel. If you can see that. Then we could mark this and fold this over, and this could be where we put our S-lock, and then this would be where we put our drive at. Now we'll move on to a snap lock punch. So if you just slip that in, so just slip it right into a U channel like this. This might represent right here an end cap. What you do is you just take your snap lock punch right here, and it presses and it indents through both sheets of metal. So we just go like that. And with that one cut, it went through and it brought all three, 1, 2, 3, out to this side. So that metal is not going anywhere. Then we can do another 2. I always like to have these in the same direction, so that one's going inwards. So we'll make that one inwards. So you know when you're working with these tools, like something like this, you're going to have your hands at the end of the tool to apply the most force possible on the tool. So there you go. So that's not going anywhere. Then you come along with your handbrakes, and you can actually tighten. You make sure that you don't actually squeeze in the area where the handbrake could end up messing up where the snap lock punch is. You just make sure that you stay in an area where you're not going to end up pressing on the snap lock punch. So you can come in this way, you know, whatever you need to do, just in order to tighten up that gap to make sure that air does not leak through it. And then you can take a dab of duct mastic along the inside just in order to seal that up. And we can put a Pittsburgh together like this. With our ductwork hammer. All right, and then we can fold it over as well. And then this way it makes a nice tight seal. Now you could get away with using a standard clawed hammer. It's just they're not as flat of a surface in the front, but you certainly could get away with using that as well. We use 1/4 inch zip screws, so if you want to screw 2 sheets of metal together, you can do so. Alright, just like that. You can actually just screw it right through, and these you can get in either a bit tip or a zip in like this that are just pointy where you press. Once again, make sure you're wearing gloves, leather gloves, and you don't want, if you're screwing a small piece of metal, you don't want it to whip around and cut you. So make sure you're wearing gloves, make sure everything's safe. So that's the 1/4" magnetic nut driver that we use in the drill. And then we also use the 5/16 magnetic nut driver, and those end up being used for the equipment's screws. So whether it's the outdoor unit, whether it's an indoor air handler or a furnace, they typically use 5/16 screws. They could also use some 1/4" screws as well. Next we have connecting a flex into a boot. This is a 90-degree boot, and this is 6-inch. This is 6-inch flex. So you know, this inner wire right here, you want to be able to cut that with something like this. Okay, diagonal pliers, that's strong enough to cut that metal. Make sure that you never use tin snips to try to cut that, because you'll end up breaking the tin snips. You'll actually put an indent in them, and then it's not really going to be any good for you to use. So always make sure you're using diagonal cutters or linesman pliers or something like that in order to cut it. And you're going to use your strap tensioner. So it has a tensioning and a cutting feature on it. So what you do is you take this, put it around, and we'll get it partially started. And we're going to take the inner lining of our flex, and we're going to work that right around just like that. We're going to try to get about 3 rings or so on there. When I say rings, I'm talking about this piece of metal right here. Now that we have that all the way down, we're going to take our weight cable tie. These are typically 36 inches. You can get them at 36 or 48. Then what we do is we take this and slide it right through, just like that. And we make it fairly tight. You don't have to go crazy tight. And then I typically cut it back a little bit further. So if you can see that, I cut it back a little further just in case every once in a while you have one of these skip back a little bit, a few notches, but that's not going to hurt anything, all right? But that is the cable tensioner or strap tensioner. This is where it ends up cutting it with that sharp knife edge. But once again, people have a variety of different ways of connecting in with their flexes. Next is the 5-blade crimpers. So you have 3 on one side and 2 on the other side. If I wanted to, say, put this reducer on top of this adjustable 90 right here, so this can actually turn into a 90-degree elbow, but what we're going to do is, this already has the 5-blade crimps in it, actually from a crimping machine. So if we wanted to increase the crimps to try to fold it in more, we would take the 2 and we would put the 2 into the inside, and see, it actually ends up pulling the metal together and kind of pulling it this way. This right here fits snugly on there just like that. But what if the piece of metal that you're attaching into did not have these crimps already, such as this right here? You can just take your crimping tool and come right along with it, just like this. You can make them more or less often depending on how much you want this to fold in. So as you see, I skipped little areas on purpose, and see, it still fits on just like that. So you don't have to crimp a crazy amount just in order to make it fit on. Let's just take a look at the other side. There's no way to get that to go on. Just a straight piece, it won't work. So it will not go on unless you use a 5-blade crimper, just like that. Just so you know, I included a list of all the tools used in this video down in the description below, such as the folding tool, the hand brakes, the 5-blade crimpers, the offset 90-degree left-hand tin snips, the combination snips, left-hand tin snips, right-hand tin snips, snap lock punch, circle cutter, strap tensioner, and all the rest of the tools used in this video. Check out our Patreon page over at patreon.com/acservicetech if you want to support the channel and also receive extra content. Hope you enjoyed yourself. We'll see you next time at AC Service Tech channel.